Welcome to Mindful Minutes with Musicians, the show where we aspire to inspire musicians and artists talking about mindfulness and what brings us through our practice to achieve greater goals.
All right. Hey, everyone. Huge thank you for everyone tuning in today and watching this episode of Mindful Minutes with Musicians. And make sure to not miss an episode and subscribe and click the bell and all that stuff. Leave your comments below. Today's guest is Sebastian Marziali, a theater actor and lighting and video designer and burlesque dancer who's been involved in designing and lighting for the 2018 and 2019 Toronto International Burlesque Festival and the 2019 Vanguardia Dance Festival. They performed in, designed, and choreographed for numerous sold-out hits in the Toronto and Edmonton Fringe festivals, with other highlights like Streetcar Named Desire at Soul Pepper and Aluna Theater's Modern Times' Blood Weddings. They're also a burlesque performer under the name El Toro and have toured all around the Americas and Europe. They've recently been running numerous online productions and creating their own intricate live stream performances with choreographed camera switching and live vocals, and I've seen it, and I can attest, it's very impressive. And now they're here with us today to talk about their own practice and mindfulness. So huge welcome to Sebastian Marziali.
Hi, thanks for having me.
No worries, welcome. So I guess we'll start off how are you? How have you been?
Doing good, all things considered. I feel like some things in the performancy world are starting to come back alive again with summer coming around. It's going to be helping out with some cool box concerts with Tapestry Opera and all that fun kind of making something still happen outdoors.
Yeah, I guess now that that's all happening and people are slowly getting vaxes and all that kind of stuff and slowly getting vaxxed and waxed and ready to get out there, and I'm hopeful about the way things are going, but I know it's definitely been a heck of a time recently, and the past year and a quarter. I how what kind of stuff have you been to? I know that this year has been basically a switch to online, and how do you feel it's affected your process, and how did what kind of stuff you've been doing? And
Yeah, it was a pretty heavy switch. Somewhere there last summer there was a little bit of some semi-live things that were able to happen. I think we got in one show with an actual live audience who was across the street sort of deal, and we're able to broadcast it on. I mean, it was still being broadcast online, so the bulk of the audience was there. But it's definitely changed the focus of things and the pace of things. I'm serially doing too many things.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Kind of still am, but it feels slightly more manageable. I don't know. It's definitely a different game and less physically demanding in a lot of ways. But then I don't know. I also, took a little stint there and just did some actual carpentry and contracting work around town when things really kind of were quieted down on the performance front. There's a lot of residencies, so I've been doing a lot of writing, a lot of
amazing
playing with cameras and gear and trying to figure out what creating is anymore.
It's refiguring out these processes that we we're so used to and so kind of in tune with doing. It was you get up on stage and you do this, or even putting a production together, you set up the audio and then you set up the lights, or what I mean. It was and now it's completely you're doing those things, but absolutely in a completely different fashion.
Totally. Well, and having to if you're doing any online shows, anytime I have to perform burlesque, I'm I have to set up and tear down a venue in my house.
Yeah.
I gotta set up 3 cameras, a bunch of lights, and all this nonsense, and then take it back down so that I can continue to use my home.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's the what is it, Tetris with the furniture, right?
Yeah,
Like moving everything around so that it fits for that time and looks, as if it
like
were.
something.
Yeah, as if it were. Yeah, I guess, have you felt like this time has kind of added to your creativity as far as that goes, or do you think it's kind of made it more difficult to be creative?
I think it's shifted the focus. I mean, I do like my main practice normally like a lot of collective creation and a lot of like very physical and like movement and
Hmm.
dance based work,
And
and
it's
also
emotion,
a
right?
lot
Like,
of
yeah.
yeah, and also a lot of like improv, which is
Hmm.
more difficult to do. Like, I can go and do a burlesque show and like have my plan, have my song, whatever, but like most of my numbers, I'm like pretty responsive to the space that I'm in and the people
Yeah.
there. And like, I just can't do that. Like, I can't, run out into the audience and like start climbing the rafters in my
Right?
house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, it definitely has like changed where the creative focus is sometimes, or like
Hmm.
different levels of planning. And then
Yeah.
I think that's where I got like super hyped on having the video switcher around so that I could at least like still play an improv a little bit more.
At least
Um,
work with some sort of switching and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, or like have a GoPro at least so I can like move the hell around and not feel like
And
I'm gonna
not,
smash anything.
yeah, not feel like it's this one angle kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's, I
Even,
mean, that's the main thing. Like, it's cool because now you can control, like, that is kind of fun for a lot of the performances, like, especially burlesque, whereas you can control what people see fully. Like, I'm not
yeah.
hiding behind a screen. I can actually, like, you don't see this thing until I want you to see
Until,
it.
yeah, you can almost use the camera, or the view line or sight line as that reveal, or as
Oh,
that, like,
totally.
like, yeah.
Yeah, like some of my, yeah, a lot of people have gotten really cool and creative, I think, with a lot of the video and, like,
Oh yeah.
and doing live performances online, but like that, making those choices, or like, having someone holding a camera and then all of a sudden we can actually move with you through this whole environment and it becomes a whole different
Hmm.
thing.
I find, like, from what I've seen, the creativity levels are kind of really um coming at it from a different angle type of thing, like where people
Mm.
are finding, because I'm seeing like there are some videos that are like basically like music videos, and you're
Yeah.
like, and you're like, how are you like coming up with this production, you know what I mean, within, you know uh, uh, your garage, or in your,
Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
your staircase or something like that, you know what I mean, or in your case, like where you are
Yeah.
right now, you basically turn that into this, like multi-viewed, and you know what I mean, even like,
Yeah.
the like looking up at cameras, and you know what I mean, this type of stuff
Oh,
where you're able
totally.
to really move like move the audience around that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, it's been fun seeing, like, again, how do you reinterpret your space, or like what is a set, or what is, I don't know, like I had the fun chance of chatting with some like young artists who are putting on this virtual cabaret and kind of getting into like, I mean, out of these 14 people across 2 countries, like, people have very different resources, like not everyone has a nice camera, not everyone has lights, and everyone, but like,
Yeah.
how do you take what you have and make it look cool? So like the environment that you do have, even just like you have that lamp, like where you place that changes the depth of your picture, and like what camera you have, like figure out what you can do with it to make it
Yeah.
funky, and like maybe you throw fabric over it and like give it like,
Yeah.
old school filters,
Oh yeah, totally,
like
totally. Or lights, lights around it or something, like,
yeah, oddly I feel
all of
like
a
things
sudden.
have gotten more digital and a little more analog at the same time, because like I see a lot more people just getting creative with that, like, yeah, throwing like a sheet over your camera until you're prepped, or like, to give it a little ambiance, some like a doily or something.
Right?
But like, you know what I mean, you can play those tricks and just like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's odd because we're kind of like using the high tech, but then using the old analog tools to work with it, because again, it's easier access to it, but I think
Hmm.
also harder for a lot of people to actually know how to use it. Like not everyone knows how to use OBS, not everyone knows how to use all these different things. Like
Yeah.
there's different learning curves, but you can always just use those old tricks. Like I
Hmm.
love the kind of like use of old magic tricks and like cabaret
Right.
techniques.
It's like it's the innovation of what you have around you to then create this, what we imagine as a stage, or what we imagine as like the lighting, or that kind of thing,
Oh,
that
totally.
would have just been a purple light or something in a club, but
Oh,
all of a
totally.
sudden it's all these
Yeah.
other all these other things.
Well, and like as simple as like switching angles for some people, it's funny because we're so locked into this like Zoom box and how we
Mhm.
expect to see people that
Yeah.
like even just like putting something at like a low corner angle, all of a sudden it's like it's theatrical. It's not just
Oh yeah, totally,
a Zoom
totally.
window. Like,
Oh, absolutely. Even like I find even like I'm being a bit of more of a techie person, I found like even using a cell phone as an extra camera, you know what I mean? Like
yeah,
we all have
totally.
extra like old cell phones around, you know what I mean? So you just
Oh
use this,
yeah,
you can use it, like it's not the best quality or whatever, but like if you have an old iPhone or something, there you go. It's like there, that could be a phone, or that could be
yeah,
a camera, you know what I mean? And
yeah,
like being able to utilize these kind of things, and even the sharing of all this knowledge, I find like that's something that's been super cool, is like
oh yeah,
yeah, it's that it's like this, like, all right, we're all gonna like benefit out of all this stuff, like we're all gonna kind of um yeah.
yeah. I think it's interesting because like it's a lot of reimagining structures. Like oddly, the time away like gives some perspective about like why have we been doing things certain ways. Like I've
Hmm.
recently started working with this awesome group that's currently based in Toronto called Means of Production. That's like trying to get together production managers and technical directors and stage managers and kind of like really look at like when we get back to doing live theater, how can we restructure things so that they're healthy? Like, you know what I mean? Like the
Hmm.
standard tech week, just we've been doing it because that's the way we've done it, but really like it doesn't benefit anyone.
Right,
So it's like,
right.
how do we, recreate the system so that it actually like functions for everybody?
Yeah, yeah, and I find that even doing this, like now that we're able to, we've be able to, we're able to value the amount of that we're putting in, as well as like what we're able to get out, and we're able to value like even that downtime, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we almost didn't allow ourselves that prior to. I like as a live event like producer in a live event, like in live events for years, I know that you're just going
Yeah.
and
It's
going, going,
like,
going, and so recently it's been like, oh, okay, like if we do this and this, then we can kind of, it's not as go 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 kind of thing, and
yeah,
yeah,
you can breathe for a minute.
yeah,
Like,
right.
yeah.
um I I this is kind of like basically around that, but like I know at the beginning of all this we were all like it was a bit like it was a lot. Do you find that now, like moving into all of this and kind of getting all this knowledge and everyone sharing and everything like that, like
Mm.
you've kind of, it's been a bit more like advantageous to you, as far as, or like even you're able to like, I find it's been better the more we get into it, kind of thing, and
Yeah. I
but
think it's started to figure out like ways to work with it and like prioritize and like even as simple as just knowing having a better idea of like what's needed, how long things take, and like
hmm.
there has been like a nice sort of democratization of a lot of roles, and I think a lot of people finally appreciating what certain people do
Hmm.
when they're forced to do it on
To
their
do it,
own or
yeah,
like or to not have it and then be like, right, this is
these are things,
why
yeah,
I need these people.
yeah,
uh,
no, totally, totally.
so it's been getting, yeah, and I mean as simple as a lot of things that the beginning was literally building new systems or like building templates for things that like weren't there before, and it's like slowly now, like this gig that I'm hopping back on for a friend, that they can just send me the OBS file and I have to do minimal things to it, whereas like before I was recreating it from the ground up or like making something completely new, and it's like that is such a different workload than like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got this sort of system in place that I've tested out a few times, and I can, I know I can just like set this up a little quickly and get it rolling, and we can be happy.
For sure. It's just like I find learning process was kind of totally different, like
Oh
as
yeah.
far as like, because these are things that like we've been in doing for years,
Yeah.
and there was, things we got used to kind of thing, and now it's
Yeah.
you know
It's
but
and I feel like every week there is like a new way to do the thing. It's
mhm.
kind of like, I mean, it's amazing how much stuff is coming out, but it's just like, from like week to week, I feel like even the same platform that I've been using, all of a sudden it's like, no, it functions completely different. And I was like, okay, great, we're gonna just
Right, new
redo this.
new updates. Oh, new updates. All right,
Yeah. And
cool. Yeah.
sometimes they're like everything you wanted, and then sometimes you're like, why did you break my
Why
toy?
did yeah, it was working.
It was working so well.
Amazing. Yeah, no, yeah, I think speaking of toys, I think this year has been good to kind of uh be able to work with those, as like techie people. I know, like,
Oh yeah.
I know being hands-on, especially, with the switchers and everything. I think that's definitely um been a great uh
Yeah.
like addition.
It's
um,
it's nice. I am like super looking forward to just like putting my hands on a lighting board again and just being able to like jam with like a
yeah.
full system of lights instead of like me and all my little pocket lights and trying to like control them from my phone.
Yeah.
But I do want to just like walk into a venue and be able to just like throw lights on people again, which I think
Yeah,
is coming. And then
I,
like
I
I'm
think
good,
so. Yeah,
but
I've started seeing announcements for events and stuff like that. So it's
it's
slowly,
it's slowly coming
happening.
back. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to like, again, I'm happy that at least for the most part it hasn't been like rushing back in to then rush back out, because that's also just like you get
Hmm.
your hopes up to function in a certain way and you're like, nope, that's not
Right.
happening.
Yeah. So, what kind of things would you say that you use to get yourself into a creative state, as far as like like getting into producing all these, or even like, how did you come up with all the different camera angles? Like what
Hmm.
how did that all kind of come about?
Um, for the most part, I mean, like those performances, it's a little bit of someone like forcing me to, or you know, it took a
There's
while.
improv in there a bit, like.
Yeah, it was there's a lot of like, I've got a few projects that I'm like slowly writing or working on, and like, doing a nice workout and then like jamming on some music and trying to like get myself in a creative mood is one thing, but like some of them's
Mhm.
also just like someone being like, I really want you in this show, so make something. And then I'm like, all right, this forces me to, and like I'll be like, I'll do it live, and then I have to like create the problem for myself to solve.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I'll be like, all right, so what's your show theme? Great, now I like have a new challenge of just like, it's that thing that I kind of miss about like just having some
Is-
challenges thrown at me, because again, like
yeah.
I can self create, but like sometimes it takes a lot for me to rev myself up, because I you know do visual arts, I write, I play a little bit of music, but like it's hard to be in the mood to be like, I'm gonna sit down and do this one
Hmm.
thing. So having someone force me to be like, I need you to do this kind of number, and then I'm like, well, then I'm gonna make it a singing number, and I'm gonna like rewrite this song, and I'm gonna like all of a sudden like that gets
It gets the
that.
cogs rolling, and
Yeah,
yeah.
I need the like little kick in the ass to get moving.
It's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. I think that
It's
we're like, that's one thing that we're all kind of there for each other at this point in time, where we're like, all right, we got,
Yeah, let's
we got
let's
things
make
to
something.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been really cool that we've kind of like hit a point of being able to find ways to collaborate again, cuz like really that's my jam at the end of the day. I'm like, I'm never that person that just wants to like write the one person show and just do it all. Like as much as I have skills to do many different things, I feel like
Yeah.
I want people to jam with and like
Oh, absolutely. That's
challenge me and
yeah. That's also part of like the whole live event culture is being immersed in all these different different people and different like that
yeah.
are bringing all these different atmospheres and vibes and that kind of stuff. So
Oh, totally. I'm like I think back to like getting back into playing bass was because like I did a show where they wanted me to play bass and I was like, all right, well I need to like refocus and get good at this again. And like or
amazing.
like the last show where I like yeah, I'll drum. That way I can like actually pull them out again and like get good at it again. Because otherwise I'm like I run out of
It's
time to practice doing too many things, so I kind of like need to force shows to like give me a
to
reason to
do
get back into something.
amazing. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. So when those things happen and people are like, do I need you to do this. How would you say you get like yourself into that creative state as far as like where um uh like you push yourself into this like create like as far as being creative
Hmm.
like is it something that you like you kind of have to take a moment or does it you just start like kind of going at ideas or do you take old ideas and revisit or refashion them or
Hmm.
um
I am a
yeah.
big fan of the like trying to go back on some old ideas and find something new. I don't know. I mean, I was when I, first got into theater, first started out, I was like super gung ho and had so many ideas and so many things that I had to make and had to do and like started all these threads that I like think some of them got lost in the ether at certain points or just like became complex projects and people moved on and like but I've like realized that there's those things that I'm permanently obsessed with and like finding new ways to come back at them. Like I have a this like permanent need to understand like us getting to cultural points where revolution is necessary and where we actually like snap into action and do something. And like whether
Hmm.
that's, my Latin roots and my family coming here like shortly after a dictatorship back home and like that sort of struggle is just kind of
Hmm.
like built into my DNA, but also I just and then yeah,
it
growing up
it
in a country where we like never really seem like just now, like this year feels like we're finally starting to like break through a little bit and actually
Mhm.
get that action moving.
Oh, for sure, for sure. It's been a definitely like a difficult process and a difficult like journey to get to this point. I know like
Yeah.
it's it's been there's been a lot of a lot of people fighting like
Yeah.
battles over years to try and even get
Yeah.
voices heard and stuff like that and
Totally. Well,
um
it takes like a certain class or group of people to become uncomfortable for things to kind of actually get moving, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. And I think platforms like music and burlesque and entertainment and stuff like that are the platforms that are, able to kind of push
Oh,
these
totally.
envelopes and have, voices kind of heard, like I think that's
Yeah.
a kind of special attribute,
Oh, totally. And that's what I love about like I mean that the last year has kind of pushed a lot of the entertainment industry into like high gear in terms of starting to actually, highlight the voices that have been completely left out and like, oh, look, all of a sudden we have this amazing art that has always been here just like you refuse to fund or like but
Right?
seeing and like a lot of people just having being able to just build their own access through,
Hmm.
websites and social medias and like streaming platforms. Like it's cool to see people kind of like taking the reins for themselves. I used to
Hmm.
do a lot of like arts advocacy when I was younger, and I kind of like think I hit a wall at a certain point, and it's nice to kind of just see that stuff bubbling up on its own now, and like
Yeah.
people just making shit happen, which always makes me happy.
Absolutely. I think there's like so many different platforms as well now that we're
Yeah.
able to utilize to do this type of work. So it's yeah, I find that's pretty amazing that like, it's these like social platforms are now being used in like really like communicative ways as far as like, people spreading, their words,
Yeah. Like people getting like super political in a great way, or people just like spreading some joy, which is also nice. And like, but it
Hmm.
is, yeah, it's nice to have the space or like the means to be able to do that. And people, I think it's that again, that understanding like, even if you don't have access to these sort of high end tools, it's really about what you do with them, right? Like it's that old thing that it's
Hmm.
like, it's not about the instrument, it's about the musician. Like at a certain
Yeah.
point, as long as you've got the guitar, like it may not be the perfect sounding guitar, but if you're an amazing player, it's going to sound great. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it's well, even like things like that, like as you said, it's not the instrument, it's the musician. It's like you could play a saw, or you could play a couple of spoons or something. You
exactly.
can kind of
Yeah.
pick up anything at that point. And if you're feeling it, or if you're like,
Yeah.
um yeah,
It's
like
it's so funny. I've been hooked on this YouTube channel Corridor Crew. They're these like CGI artists out in the States, and like they just build like this super fun YouTube content, and like they have the ongoing series of like CGI artists react and like stuntmen react, and just like
that's funny.
funny looking back at like these people that got into this when it was like very base level like 30 years ago, but no, longer than that at this point, 40, 50 years
Yeah.
ago. But like looking at some of the stuff that they were like, some of the old school like people, shooting on like 16-bit, and it was just like shooting
Right.
on like these crummy little cameras like on disc, and then like just creating CGI out of like hours and hours of effort and rendering time. And like it's cool to see like all the things that we can do now, but just again like the creativity that came out of people just like, okay, I've got either film and I can scratch it up or layer some things on top, and like again using those like old analog tools, and then again how you
Mhm.
do that like digitally, and like I don't
Yeah.
know. Point being, like super fun stuff has always been happening in this realm, but it's like it's
Yeah.
cool to see how it's come around and how like everyone has some access to something. Like if you've
Yeah.
got patience and willing to sit through a few ads and nonsense, then you might be able to like
Yeah.
build some really cool animations or like
Oh
or you
man.
have your phone and you can build a stop motion film.
Yeah, I even like YouTube School. Like
Yeah.
just the fact that the amount of information that is on that platform alone to watch, to learn, like
Oh,
it's
totally. I
it's kind of
definitely.
amazing. Yeah.
The rabbit hole definitely happens
Yeah.
often. And it's like I wanna try this thing, and then it's like 40 videos later. I'm just like, right,
Yeah.
okay. I
I
think
think
I actually have an idea.
yeah. A good starting point now. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna like ask like a follow-up kind of thing. Is like
Yeah, yeah.
what is mindfulness to you? As far as like, the whole, being and state, and yeah.
Mm. For me, I think it's just like really, really learning to be like honest about your state and the state of things around you. Um, I don't know. I get like minus mentality, especially coming from like uh a sort of collaborative creation theater background, like really is about like breathing in and being with everything around you, whether that's like the group of people that's with you or like the room you're in, and like trying to really find like full presence in a place and time. And like
Hmm.
I mean it's always easier for me oddly enough when there is other people around, and like
Hmm.
I,
Yeah.
I've never gotten fully into like a strong meditative sort of practice or something like that,
Yeah.
but like I have my things, and like my it's usually in preparation for something. Again, I feel like
Hmm.
there's something about having a target that makes it easier for me. Like if I know that I'm like, you know, got an audition later today or something, then like I can
Yeah.
settle in and like be with myself and warm up in a way that's like sort of like fulfilling and fully
Hmm.
embodied. Um, but yeah, I think for me, it's like knowing what my goal is, whether it's like big or small, and then like being aware of like the pieces that are going to help me get there. Not necessarily like external things, but like what can I control and what can I sort of come to terms with in myself, both like mentally or like physically in the environment around me, to make those things a reality.
Yeah, totally. I like that, because it's like you mentioned you're like not that good at meditating, or like not. I think that a meditative state is so many different things, like even a deep breath, and I like, okay, now now get into whatever, like that's a meditation, like even if like momentary, but like I think I like that, like even
Totally.
just like getting into that, and like I think the idea of the not forcing yourself, but like being like, I got to do this now.
It's
you
like
know what I mean? I think
prompting yourself.
Yeah, like prompting. You're like, all right, now this is my next goal, kind of thing, and I think that's I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and then like giving yourself room to kind of, one thing I think definitely this year that's gotten a lot better is like giving myself room to change that, or like to take a break from it, and like kind of sometimes just prompting myself again to like, you know what, I'm not functioning at full force here, so I'm gonna just like take the dogs out, and then not put music in my ears for 10 minutes, and just like and see the world around me for a bit,
and enjoy
and, like,
that walk.
kind of, it'll kind of like recenters everything, or like finding an excuse. I mean, if it's like just the walk down the street, or if it's like, I'm gonna go bike to the lakeshore, to just like hit reboot.
Right. Totally. Yeah. This is actually listening to a podcast that was kind of talking about walks, just going for walks and listening to, the surrounding areas, and listening to noises and that kind of stuff is like,
It's, I know, because I am the worst of like, almost every time I go out, I, reach for the headphones, and I'm like, wait a minute, do I need it this time around? Like sometimes it's nice. Sometimes I'm like, I want to listen to a podcast and walk and just like visually take in the world. But like every so often, just being like, you know what, I'm gonna go out and maybe not listen to a thing, and just sit there for a while and hear birds.
Birds and water, like that's those are the things that kind of have been around for since beginning of time, kind of thing. And
those things that we like need to remember that like we're in the world.
Totally, absolutely, man. I think
especially now.
Well, I think that's a sweet place to kind of wrap up. I really appreciate you kind of being here and taking the time to kind of just chat with me about this stuff. And I'm gonna link all of your socials down below, so definitely follow and like and subscribe and all those fun things. So
awesome.
Awesome. I'm gonna hit the
so much
outro music.
Thank you for tuning in to Mindful Minutes with Musicians. For more information about my guest and the topics of the show, go to blackmoremedia.ca and connect with us on all social media platforms. Welcome to the MMWM family, where we aspire to inspire. See you soon.
Amazing. Thank you again. This has been really nice. I appreciate this.
That was so lovely. Also, that bass riff is so nice.
Thanks, man.